Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It's Tuesday, October 7th. Derek Van Riper here with Eno Saris. On this episode, we get you caught up on both NL Division series. The Dodgers and Brewers have opened up 2-0 series lead as those series changed locations. Phillies-Dodgers heading to LA. Brewers-Cubs headed to Chicago. So today, an off day for those series, travel day. Those series both resume on Wednesday. Get some ALDS action getting underway shortly after you hear this pod, or maybe already in progress. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on those two series today. We are going to look at some of the projected arbitration raises. MLB trade rumors. Matt Swartz does a great job with those numbers, comes in very close to what those numbers actually come out to be in the end. We'll look at teams that might have to make some moves, maybe some non-tender decisions along the way, as some non-playoff news that you might be interested in as well. But, let's begin with the action from Monday night. The Dodgers open up a 2-0 lead over the Phillies. A lot of places we could begin. We'll start at the actual beginning of this game. I think if you are a Phillies fan, you're thrilled with the performance of Jesus Luzardo against that Dodgers lineup. And if we want to start the nitpicking with Luzardo, I think we start it with the decision to let him come back out to begin the 7th inning, because the Dodgers put up a 4 spot in that inning, and that was what they ended up needing to win this game. There was traffic on when Orion Kerkering entered the game. Probably a combination of bad luck and close plays sprinkled in that made that inning worse than it had to be. But the second-guess theater question would be, were you on board with Luzardo coming back out to start that inning, which started with a single and a double? So we had runners on second and third with nobody out when Kerkering entered the game.
Yeah, I don't know. He looked good, but one thing you could also tell was that over time, his velocity was going down a little bit. Luzardo started the game with 98s and 99s. I mean, his first fastballs were 98 and 99. And then by the time we got to that inning, he was more 96, 95 even. And so there had definitely been a drop in the quality of his stuff over the course of that game. Plus, seeing the lineup another time through, I think I might have given the relievers a clean inning, or take him out as soon as the single happens. I just don't think you want to walk your way into even 1 or 2 runs in a game that looked like it might be decided by 1 or 2 runs.
Right. And I think if you'd taken him out after the leadoff single, then you would have gone righty-lefty against Freddie Freeman instead of lefty-lefty. So that was probably the reason why they went ahead and kept him on for Freeman. But I think if I was going to make that decision again, with the benefit of hindsight, maybe I just bring in Orion Kerkering at the very beginning of that inning so he doesn't see Teoscar or Freddie a third time, even though he got Betts and Ohtani to close out the 6th. And that inning was just brutal, right? I mean, so Kerkering comes in, he strikes out Tommy Edman, gets a broken bat dribbler off of Kike Hernandez, really close play at the plate. Teoscar Hernandez safe by the smallest of margins, but that's all that matters, right? And he gets a pop-up from Andy Pages, no runners advance there, but then Will Smith takes a first pitch sweeper, knocks that into left center field. That drives in 2, so the floodgates started to open from there. But there's a world in which that broken bat dribbler turns into an out, and that inning ends with a lot less damage.
How does Kike Hernandez do it?
It's magic. I have no explanation at this point.
I mean, for a player that, for his career has a 91 WRC plus, a 236, 305, 403 line, Enrique Hernandez, during the regular season. His postseason line is 280, 350, 516. He's a 132 WRC plus guy in the postseason. I don't even get it. Dude, he got the hit off a righty too, right? But it wasn't really a hit.
No, that's what I'm saying is extremely frustrating is Kerkering got a great result. Shattered his bat, extremely weak contact. It just happened to go right to a spot that allowed enough time for Hernandez to score and no one to be thrown out.
I mean, I'd be tempted to say, situation. He's just facing lefties in the postseason. which may be part of it. But at this point in his career, he's not facing that many righties anyway. Maybe that is it, because let's look at his splits, lefty righty for his career. His career splits against lefties he has a 251, 332, 450 with a 111 W. See, that looks a lot closer. So maybe he just mostly in the postseason becomes more of a part-time player that only sees lefties, and so he's seeing the better part of his splits. Maybe that's part of the magic.
I think so. I think ideal matchups help a little bit in those small samples and can really play up a lot.
Because
that was
during the regular
where
season, they're playing him all over the place because he's kind of like the filler, utility guy. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just a remarkable twist of bad luck wrapped into that inning. And I think the one thing you could have done differently was bring Ryan Kerkering in early, but I don't think that's the decision everybody is sweating today.
No.
Right? The thing everyone's upset about today, and Matt Gelb wrote it perfectly in his story, there will be debates for months about manager Rob Thompson's decision to ask Bryson Stott to bunt against the lefty reliever with no outs and the tying run on second base in the ninth inning. The Phillies had momentum during a furious comeback that attempted to atone for 7 innings of nothingness, right? So after a rally that included a Bohm single, a JT Realmuto double, second and third, nobody out, Nick Castellanos doubles to score both runners, very close play at second base, safe upon review, upheld. And they decide to have Bryson Stott bunt against Alex Vesia. So trying to start of the inning, Vesia comes in for Stott. And
it's not a great matchup for Stott.
It's not a great matchup for Stott. But nobody out and a tying run on second base. And I just, you dug into this a little bit, and there were a lot of people breaking down the math. This was clearly just a bad decision. And especially, I think, when you take into context, the Phillies had already used the relievers they trust in this game. So if this game goes extras and you play for the tie, you're getting into the weaker part of your bullpen.
Yeah.
And that's probably not what you want to do.
Yeah. Also, there's no double play in order.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So let's Stott hit. What's the there's the only double play that could happen is one of those ones that happens every once in a while that you just can't do anything about, where you hit a screaming liner at a player that just happens to be right next to a bag. I mean, that I guess that could happen, but most likely what happens is you effectively move the guy over to third and you get an out, or you strike out and everything stays the same. That would have been better than what happened. Also, just in terms of, the math behind it, JJ Cooper put this out, and the run expectancy with the runner on second and no out is 1.13 runs. Okay. So that's what you expected to score in that situation. And then the run expectancy when you move him to third is 0.97. So the run expectancy goes down because you lower your chances of scoring multiple runs because you gave up an out. That part we know. And then the other part is true. You do you increase the chance of scoring. So the chance of scoring one run goes from 61% to 66%. But you're already at 61%.
Mm-hmm.
Why is moving that needle from 61 to 66 so much worth it? And then there's the wrinkle that you saw the defense they were going to put on you.
Oh, this is the part that drives me nuts. So the first pitch is a ball, and Bryson Stott gets a chance to see that the Dodgers are going to crash the infielders in and run a wheel play. They're going to bring both corner infielders in.
So let's watch it. We can describe what a wheel play is.
It's just, yeah, go ahead.
Watch Mookie's at short. He's going to run to third. The third baseman runs down there. The first baseman runs over to second. Everyone's running somewhere, so it's kind of a wheel. What happens is basically the first and third baseman crash, and then whoever gets the ball, the other person runs to second. The second baseman runs to cover first, in case that you actually do try to get the original runner, and the shortstop runs to third. It only works if you have a little bit of foot speed.
Right. And Mookie beat Nick Castellanos to the bag at third by a pretty healthy margin, right?
I think you can do that math. Now, let's put us in the shoes of Bryson Stott, right? Because Bryson Stott is not an automaton. He gets to make the decisions. He told reporters after the game that he saw that the wheel play was on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said that his response was just to try and deaden the ball to make it harder on them because that third baseman has to come further in. I would suggest you take the pitch or you swing away on that second one because, first of all, if you see that that's what they're doing, look how many holes are created. Let's watch this again. Look how many holes. If you're swinging away, how many holes are there? I mean, the shortstop's running away, so anything up the middle is a hit.
Yep.
And even anything to the left and right is going at a moving defender.
I mean,
so how likely is it that if you hit it towards the shortstop hole, that Mookie Betts, who's running past the shortstop hole, is like, oh, got that.
Yeah, slamming on the brakes. It's more likely if you hit one down the line past the third baseman that Mookie's momentum is going towards that bag. Maybe
that's the
he can
only
make
place
some kind
you get
of
in trouble.
Absurd play. Take that chance.
You have that chance anyway.
Yeah.
If you swing away, like I said, there's that liner double play that you could line into. But I think when you see this wheel play going on, you're like, this bunt's not going to work.
Right. Now, if that bunt happens on the first pitch of the sequence and you don't know they've got the wheel play on, I think you just shrug your shoulders and say, they had a good plan defensively. They executed it well. I didn't get the bunt down I wanted. I didn't know they were going to play it that way. I wasn't sure they were going to play it that way.
But he saw it. And they didn't make an adjustment. And it's not, I mean, that doesn't fall only on Bryson Stott. There's a shared responsibility. Well,
right?
There's a little bit that I wonder about coaching effects here.
Mm-hmm.
So in Fabian's story, they call him Doc. Why do they call him Doc?
Thompson?
No, now all I can think of is Doc, the Dodgers coach, the Dodgers manager.
Dave Roberts?
They call him Doc. Anyway, Dave Roberts comes out and he goes, "What do you guys want to do?"
His initials are DR, so maybe that's why they call him Doc.
That could be it. Yeah. Anyway, so he comes out and he says, "What do you want to do?" And Mookie says the wheel, which they hadn't practiced all year and maybe not even in spring training.
But at some point, they'd all done it. It's just...
Everyone knows, I guess, they knows the wheel. Although, Mookie, how much short has he played? How many times has he done the wheel before?
But also,
But he's also suggesting it.
One person knows, they say, here's what we're going to do, and they just tell you. And so, okay. This
I bet you somebody on that infield was like, where do I go?
Cover it in 10 seconds, and okay, I'll go there.
You just cover first. Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
So anyway, he said, and they started talking, and he was like, "Yep, that sounds good. You got it." And he just gave utter confidence in his players. Now, I'm not suggesting that I don't know Rob Thompson's inner workings, but would Bryson Stott have felt the same sort of autonomy to take the bunt play off himself?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I mean, I hope so, but I don't know.
There's a lot on you. Maybe as a player, he might have felt that autonomy and still decided, I don't want that smoke. They called for a bunt. I'm going to bunt. I'm going to do a good one.
Or he just thought he could execute it. If you just believe you can execute it and their defense will not matter and you'll still advance to run to third, then so be it.
Why didn't he get hungry, dude? Why didn't he see the wheel and go oh man, I can put this ball in play, dude. If I can put this ball in play, it's a free hit and we score and we're still going, dude.
I know. I think for anyone who's not a Dodgers fan, that's what we all were hoping they would have done in that instance. But it all kind of just unraveled from there. And Roki Sasaki came on to close it out. The Dodgers needed 3 relievers to get through the 9th, man.
Not a clean inning. I mean,
no,
not a clean inning. And I would have given that on the other side. There's a debate about would you have left Emmett Sheehan in? Mm-hmm. What would you have done? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know that I trust Blake Treinen right now. It just hasn't been working. Either the command has mostly been gone. The stuff is seemingly okay, but the command hasn't been there. I would have gone to Roki with a clean inning. Roki is my closer at this point, just capital C closer. And I don't think you need to leave Sheehan in to. Once you leave Sheehan in for a 3rd inning, you're getting closer and closer to Sheehan the starter, right? Which I'm not saying is bad either, but I'm just saying. Sheehan the reliever. He had good gas. He looked good. But third inning is a lot when you're talking about a reliever versus a starter. So I would have gone to Roki with the clean inning just right from the beginning. Show him that confidence. Be like, you're our closer, And I think he feeds off that. I think that's why he's always been like a big game WBC type performer. I think this is a perfect role for him. What do you think next year? I think it'd be really hard to like move him off a closer.
I think you could certainly justify it, and it doesn't mean that he's not a starter down the road. He's still young enough where you can toggle that later. It fills a need. He's handling it very well so far. OptaStats had this from last night. Since saves became official in 1969, Roki Sasaki is the only MLB pitcher to have his first 2 career saves both come in the postseason. I mean,
I think it's an origin story.
Yeah. And they have enough starters. They don't need him to be a starter right now. So,
I know I can do math. I know there's more value.
Yeah, of course.
From a guy who throws 180 innings. But is there in this particular case? Because what is he as a starter? Is he 95, 96 as a starter with a bad shaped fastball?
Right. And it fixes the fastball a lot when you get those extra ticks.
It really does. And he doesn't have a great breaking ball. So, the comps here are, if it works out, it's like Kevin Gossman. But you know what Kevin Gossman has that Roki Sasaki doesn't have? Really good command.
Mm.
I think
also
that's
took Gossman some time to get to the level he's at now. I mean, he was frustrating pitcher earlier in his career with the Orioles.
That is true. So I think I don't know. I think I go past 50%. I think it is more likely than not that Roki Sasaki is a reliever next year.
I am so amazed that you are in a draft for next season before me. I love that you have passed me on the sicko power rankings.
When the pitcher list, it's also the shallowest draft I think I've ever done in my life. It's 12 teams with 3 outfielders, no middle infielder, corner infield, and 9 pitchers. And, well, I won't give away my strategy just yet.
No, don't give away your strategy, but I think you can do something with Roki in these early drafts where you're like, okay, well, there's a good chance he's a closer. And if they're not going to close him, they're going to probably stretch him out and see how that goes again. And if that doesn't work at the beginning of the season,
either way,
the leverage
early
later.
Decision, early dropper. There's definitely a time where you take him when you say, if this works out, it's great. If it doesn't work out, I have another pitcher in there by opening day almost.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see where he starts to go in these early leagues as he continues to thrive in this new role. We're going to get to some predictions a little bit later on in the show, or at least we'll attempt to make one prediction. We'll see if we can actually land it.
Have we been bad?
Have we been bad?
I think we've
flip-flopped off of the Blue Jays, so that's pretty bad.
But I picked the Yankees, so
I picked the Phillies to roll.
I think we both picked the Phillies.
I'm going to say we've been bad. Yes.
I think we haven't been good this far. Is it chalky? It's kind of chalky. The number one, the higher seed is in charge in each of these situations right now.
Except for the Dodgers.
Dodgers are lower seed. That's so weird.
Yeah.
That's weird for me because one of the reasons I didn't pick them was I felt like it was kind of chalky, but it's not as chalky this year. Not based on wins in the regular season.
There's so much we're going to say about the Dodgers, I feel like, in the next few weeks, because they're just not going to go away quickly. I think we're going to see them for a little longer, maybe a lot longer.
Yeah.
Brewers-Cubs, though, has been enjoyable from my part of the country. And the Brewers rebounded from another early homer, scored 7 unanswered to take game 2. So they head to Chicago with a 2-0 series lead, just like the other series, off Tuesday, back on Wednesday. Aaron Ashby as an opener did not go as hoped. He had Nico Hoerner 0-2. Hoerner took a pitch that was pretty well outside the strike zone the other way for a single. Kyle Tucker fouled a ball off his knee and walked. And I'm just going to have that lingering question because he missed some time in September. Like, how far from 100% is Kyle Tucker throughout this entire postseason? I think that's a question worth asking. But it was Seiya Suzuki who hit a bomb to put the Cubs up 3-0 early. And it really felt like any momentum the Brewers might have had coming off that big game 1 win was gone. Flip this calendar to the bottom of the first inning, and nope. The Brewers just snapped right back and got it back with a 3-run homer from Andrew Vaughn in the first inning. I mean, this series has been bonkers in the early part of each of the first 2 games.
Yeah, Andrew Vaughn made some really small adjustments with the Brewers that made a big difference. I mean, he closer to the plate than he ever been before, further back in the box, swinging harder with the shorter swing. None of those changes was by themselves like a huge one where you're like, oh my God, it's like 6 inches. No, it was all like a little bit, but all of those things are good for power, I believe. Being closer to the plate means you can be more powerful on the outside part of the plate. Being further back in the box means you have more time to make a decision. Swinging harder leads to better outcomes. So I think there was some coaching effect there, maybe some intent, maybe just a change of scenery, getting out of there. He probably gets better prepared for games now than he used to. So big moment there from Vaughn. What I found interesting already in the second inning with Milwaukee coming back with Aaron Ashby after what wasn't a great first inning, they stuck with him. I thought, okay, Aaron Ashby's out here to get Pete Crow Armstrong, lefty on lefty. But they stuck with him through Dansby Swanson, Matt Shaw, and Justin Turner, and only took him out of there once Justin Turner got a hit. That's lefty on righty, three in a row.
Yeah.
When you expected Aaron Ashby to be the opener, I don't know. I think maybe the math there is about what happens at the end of the game. If you push Ashby a little bit further, maybe you can get from Misiorowski, basically hand the ball to Uribe. Maybe that's the idea, is like you can get further with Misiorowski. So, once you get the big lead, does that bring Chad Patrick in where you would have pushed Misiorowski? So Misiorowski did great for a while. Then Chad Patrick came in to get Carson Kelly, Pete Armstrong, and Dansby Swanson before you handed it to your traditional end of bullpen. So I didn't know why Ashby was in there, but we were joking on the group chat that maybe it's because he's 99 and he seems to have corralled the command a little bit. So a really kind of gutsy performance by Ashby to have that first inning and then turn it around and have a much better second inning.
Yeah, and got a couple more outs. Nick Mears finished off that inning, and they went to Misiorowski for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We wondered just how Misiorowski would be deployed. Would it be early? Would it be later? Would it be a longer outing? Would it be a shorter outing? 57 pitches, 3 innings, 4 Ks, 2 walks, 1 hit. And I think this was like your prototypical, effectively wild sort of performance, right? Like I think that's the fairest way to sum it up, right? The fastball command in particular, and everything with Miz can be all over the place, but the fastball is so erratic. I think he loses calls that he should get around the edges, right? He touched 104.3 in this outing. He was amped for this outing.
I mean, this is pretty poor command, not only because of zone, in zone, out zone. If you looked at Blake Snell's pitch chart from yesterday, Blake Snell gets a bad rap, I think, as having poor command. Yesterday, Blake Snell did not throw a single pitch in the heart of the zone. Now you look at Misiorowski's and you're like, well, not only is there a big spread from top to bottom, but there's a bunch of pitches down the middle. Now, the pitches that are down the middle are, mid 90s, high 90s sliders.
Right. So it's like, it kind of reminds me of some of the Spencer Strider dialogue from when Strider broke in, where it was like, he's middle a lot, but the stuff right now is so good that he's a little more likely to get away with it for the time being. Like, long term, does that have problematic tendencies? Of course. But I thought that the impressive thing was, even though you have a couple of those sliders middle where you really don't want them, he seemed to have better command around the zone overall with it, right? The misses were worse on the fastball than they were with the slider.
There's a couple on the black too, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, this chart just shows his zone percentage in the regular season versus the postseason. In the regular season, Misiorowski has okay command. Now, part of that might be he spent a whole inning averaging 103.
That's just ridiculous.
He did not do that during the regular season. And so, he was pretty amped up. He was so amped up that I think he didn't want to throw the ball to first base to get an out. He needed to run it over, and then he hulked out a little bit. But yeah, in the regular season, he had 57% zone percentage on the fastball, 58 on the slider, 50 on the curve, 28 on the change. Is probably why I didn't see the change that much. In the postseason, 43% zone percentage on the fastball in the game yesterday, 79% on the slider. That's what really saved his bacon and made it effectively wild in the end, is that you're trying to time to the fastball. He's all over the place to the fastball. And yet, even when he needs a strike, he can go to a pitch that's pretty nasty and pretty hard to inherently hit that thing. Even if you sat slider against Misiorowski, the slider was coming in at, where is this? It was, he had a slider that was 97.
It's just absurd.
He was sitting 94, 95, sort of 93 to 95, I guess, later in his outing. That's still a crazy ass slider. That's a Jake DeGrom-esque slider.
Yeah, it's gross in a complimentary sort of way.
There's some stuff that, JJ Cooper is great. He's always tweeting about, velocity trends and stuff. And he had a couple different ways of looking at this, but he wrote, this game has had 2,301 plus mile per hour pitches. That was yesterday's game. 23
101 mile per hour pitches.
And he wrote, that's more than were thrown in the 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 18, 19, 20, or 24 seasons, postseasons in all. I think there's something interesting there. If you listen to the numbers that I just spat out. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay. So the beginning of the PitchFX era.
Sure. A few years ago.
All of them. Every year. We had that one game had more than. But then you start to see gaps. 13, 15, 18, 19, 20, 24. So I think we're heading towards an asymptote when it comes to pitching velocity development. I had that piece, like, how hard can people throw? And one of the answers from Glenn Fleisig was this. This is how hard people can throw. And his evidence was, injury rates and, cadaver ligament testing and stuff like that. But another piece of evidence is just that the rate of increase in velo has slowed a little bit. And you can see it partially in that one tweet where it's like, yes, it was more than, the first 7 years in a row. But then there's like gaps missing where it's like there were other seasons where there were more 101 mile pitches. And I think we might be heading towards sort of an asymptote. That might be hopeful for baseball, because if we can figure out how to more healthily throw just as hard as we're throwing right now. But what I have seen from other pieces around the world, I can't tell you exactly where I saw this, but somebody was talking about how there's a cycle in pitching development where you're like, okay, we want to keep you healthy, so we're going to make your movements more efficient, right? And that's going to take the load off your elbow. And so you're going to be more efficient. What happens when you teach someone to be more efficient and they take the load off their elbow? Well, then they're like, wow, I can throw harder. So they put the load right back on by throwing harder, And so there are some cycles we can get into that may just continue to keep injuries where they are. But if we are heading towards a velocity asymptote, that could be hopeful for the state of injuries in baseball.
Yeah, I like being hopeful about the state of injuries in baseball. It's generally where I want to live. Beyond Misiorowski, we saw Trevor McGill for 2/3. He recouped some of the velocity that was missing from that final appearance of the regular season. Not all, but I think, was it 98 on the fastball and 87 on the curve? Like that'll play. That'll work. You can get by with that kind of velo. It was Abner Uribe who closed it out. And sandwiched in there, Chad Patrick out of the bullpen was touching 98. So there might be a few more flamethrowers in that Brewers pen than we previously accounted for, specifically when you have a guy who was starting like Patrick in shorter bouts, getting that extra postseason bump, kind of going max effort in shorter outings.
I guess, the silver lining in Trevor's late season injury was that, Abner Uribe sort of came into his own. Not that he hadn't closed games before, but, I think having a stretch where there's no question the ball's going to Uribe in the ninth can settle your nerves a little bit. Yes, McGill at 98 was not quite at the 99 season average. But on the flip side, like you mentioned, Patrick sat 94 and touched 97, 98 with the four seam. I mean, that's up 3 ticks. And that's something fun because Patrick also has 4 pitches that kind of interact very interestingly. He's almost all fastball. And the fastballs are in very normal, sort of similar velocity bands. Like his 4-seam fastball yesterday went 97.5 and his sinker went 96.9. So there's not much of a difference velocity wise. And there's a big difference movement wise. So he just plays all those 3 fastballs off of each other and every once in a while throws in a slurve, but it's that Triforce of fastball idea that has really made Chad Patrick hum this year.
A banana peel with 3 fastballs?
Yeah, I guess so.
I like that. I like that as
a frozen banana peel.
A frozen banana peel. Sounds very unpleasant. Jackson Chourio played in this game, hit a huge 3-run homer that stretched that lead. I think that was the breathing room that you were referring to earlier, where with Misiorowski coming back for the 5th and the relievers just having that extra cushion, that made this feel a lot better for Brewers fans kind of watching throughout. They did go with a late defensive replacement. Brandon Lockridge played left at the very end of the game, but really good sign to see Chourio back out there and contributing like that. That was a big homer to center field off of Daniel Palencia. And I think that's been the thing that has kind of stuck with me, seeing Jackson Chourio ever since we first started getting clips from him as he was coming through the minor leagues. It's all Fields power. It is not just pull side power. He hits homers at premium velocity all over the park.
Yeah. I thought I saw a little hitch in his step a couple times.
Yeah. There was a ball he caught near the wall in left field.
And then afterwards, he kind of
had a little hitch, gimpy, like jogging back in, and you can tell he's not 100%. The extra days off in the series, we've talked about it from the impact of the relievers. If you're nursing a muscle injury like that, I think it is a really nice thing to have an opportunity to get off and get treatment.
Must feel so risky.
Yeah, I would imagine, and he's generally been a pretty healthy player, even going back to the minors. I think this is one of the first times he's had a muscle strain like this. And since he missed a month with it, there's that tentative, if I push it harder, is it gonna pop? Is it gonna feel worse? So I think you can tell that's still in the back of his mind. But man, that was a huge homer.
If his reaction is, I just had a slug, baby, I can't have any doubles, I gotta have homers. I mean, that was the one of the real surprises. I don't know. Surprising is sort of a demeaning word, but this was a surprising stat for me. The Brewers in the history of the postseason had not had a 3-run homer before Jackson Chourio hit his 3-run homer, and then they had 2 that game. Vaughn hit one and earlier. Yeah. Oh, Vaughn was the first.
But last night was the first time the Brewers have hit a 3-run homer. They never hit a grand slam in the playoffs before. It's like, wait, what?
There were 49 or 50 games before that happened. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And so, if that is the kind of postseason they're going to have and they are going to slug, then, I mean, they can go as far as they want to. I mean, really, right? I mean, I guess the other question is, how will they figure out the starting pitching? Misiorowski may have answered some of that where, hey, he's basically a starter for us. And this will work really with an opener, maybe without an opener. I could see Misiorowski starting this next game just as a starter.
It's possible. He threw enough pitches. They could maybe expect 4 and change, possibly 5 if the command's really good, or if a team goes up there with a plan to try and attack him early. Like if they think he's trying to give air quotes, hittable stuff, like if he's really trying to pound the zone and throwing stuff in the heart of the zone and they just want to like try to tee off on the fastball or something, like maybe that could make him get through an outing pretty efficiently. A lot of possibilities. I do think the unknown, if the Brewers advance, you have the possibility of a Brandon Woodruff return, giving them something. It might not be.
Did they
full.
say he could come back later?
It's possible. Yeah, like it hasn't been ruled out at least. And Jose Quintana could give them some length. And then the games they decided to play in game 2, we thought it was going to be Quinn Priester. He was throwing on the field, like warming up like he was going to be the follower, and they're saving him for game 3 against Jamison Taillon instead. I mean, Priester can give them length as well. It really just depends on the situation. How rested is your bullpen? What's the score? All of the factors that we're looking at to decide how aggressively you're going to push them. So they have a few guys beyond Freddie that can offer that. The 2 I would circle are Priester and Quintana, given the uncertainty around Woodruff. But that is going to be the ultimate question as this series continues and if the Brewers advance, as they move further into the postseason.
So some of the silver lining on this game is that exactly what I was talking about with the extra runs, putting Patrick in, because if that was a tighter game, I could see multiple innings or like 4, 5 outings from maybe even McGill and Uribe and pushing them harder.
Yeah.
Pushing Koenig harder, all of that. So, I think they did get some benefit out of it. It's surprising maybe to me that they didn't keep one of those relievers in their holster, but the other thing that's motivating you is just to get the win, make sure don't let them back in this game. So, and this is a team with a lot of power, the Cubs. So, that's, had a great wild card series, I think, for most of them. And then these games obviously are fun for the teams that are winning and super sad for the teams that are losing, like they're for their fans, but like 3 2-0 leads just seems like a letdown after the wild cards, because now a 2-0 lead in a 5-game series, the math is not with you.
Yeah, the win rate for the series is close to 90%. There's a bunch of ways people have sliced it. From the Phillies' perspective, for teams that lose at home in games 1 and 2 in this format, it's 16 of 18 have gone on to lose the series, including 12 sweeps. The 2015 Blue Jays are the last team to drop the first 2 at home, but still win a 5-game series. So it happens, but yeah, it's an uphill battle for sure. So even without having to call the 1 in 10 sort of outcome of the series that are 2-0, which do you feel is most likely to actually go to a 5th game?
I'm going to stick with the Yankees, I think.
You're going to stick with the Yankees?
And they looked like the worst out of any of them, right? Like they didn't even just lose the first 2 games. They got boat raced in the first 2 games. I don't know. I could just see, when I see, games like that, I just think, somebody didn't have it pitching wise, and they did score some runs, and this lineup is going to score runs. So I'm sticking with the best lineup that's left, in the 2-0 bin. And I'm saying basically, if you get Fried another chance, if you give some of these guys another chance, Rodon could come out, tonight and shove. This is still a really good team. So I think there's a chance that one of these 3 teams does do it, but because you could also pick the Phillies. Like they have pretty good pitching. They've been in these games. These have been tighter games,
Yeah, you're looking at Nola versus Yamamoto.
Yeah, what I don't like about the Phillies is they use their best pitching already. There's not that much left in the cupboard in terms of also they use their best relievers in both those games. So that has made their relievers worse going forward in this series. So that's the one reason I didn't pick the Phillies.
Are you surprised the Phillies are going to do a Nola Suarez tandem in Game 3?
I mean, they've been talking about Suarez a lot. There's been a lot of questions. I've been reading the post-game and pre-game conferences, and there's always a question of like, will you use Suarez tonight? Will you use Suarez tonight? So I could see this being a little bit of a deke where Nola's the opener.
Like 1 inning of Nola, or maybe 2 innings of Nola, and then a toggle to Suarez for 4+.
Yeah, just because you can change some things about the opposing lineup, especially with Nola, you might put together your versus righty lineup, and expect it to kind of be played normally, and you could mess with that with an early Suarez appearance.
Yeah, anything's possible. I think the rooting interest in me is nervous that the Cubs back at home can get comfortable. The pitching edges, Tyon versus Priester, pretty small. Like I think you could see the Cubs pushing their way
Tyon
back
looked
into
really
the series.
Great last time out.
Yeah, and how quick they give them the hook, I think, is going to be kind of interesting to see. Sure, any team could do it, but that's the one I'm worried about. Obviously, given who I am, I think the Phillies getting to 5. That one, for some reason, feels like the least likely to me, even though it shouldn't be. I thought the Phillies were going to win this series. I thought the Phillies were going to win the NLCS. And
I guess the Dodgers are answering questions that we had about them. And seemingly in the affirmative, which is like, do they have a bullpen? It might just be Sheehan and Sasaki, but yeah, that's better than we thought before, probably.
It's working when you're getting 5 or 6 from your starters, and your starters are pitching as well as they're pitching in a Yamamoto versus Nola and Ranger. I'd like the Yamamoto side of that more from a starting pitching perspective.
They're pushing their starters more than they ever have. In terms of innings, this is the most the Dodgers have pushed them, and I think it's because they don't really trust the bullpen, but also their starters are really good.
I think what I'm actually rooting for as we look at the game 3s from the AL side before we go, I mean, it's Gilbert versus Flaherty. That's the afternoon game. It's going to start at 4 o'clock Eastern. Again, probably about the time most people get to start hearing this podcast. That favors Gilbert by a decent margin, but
that's a tight series. Thank God we have that series.
Really tight series. Yeah. That one feels like, I mean, it's 1-1, so it feels almost.
But also the games themselves
go back to 5.
Extra innings close. And just like tying runs on the plate in the end of the game. And
but even the Phillies-Dodgers games have been very tight.
True.
Like the margins, the big innings have come on really small margins. That if one bounce is a little bit different, we're talking about it in a completely different context. I look at that game, I'm like, okay, Gilbert Flaherty, probably the Mariners, but tight, low scoring is kind of the way I expect that entire series to go. And then with Jays, Yankees, Bieber versus Rodon. Just curious, like, where are you at with Bieber now? We've seen a few turns. What kind of a performance do you think they're going to get out of him at Yankee Stadium?
I would have picked, for the last 2 or 3 years, I would have picked Rodon easily in this. Mm-hmm. And I think I still pick Rodon. But Bieber's kick change, it's really interesting. It's the best changeup he's ever thrown. And this is for a guy who has 2 great breaking balls. And the velo is back, so this could be nails.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. One more topic before we go, a non-playoff topic. MLB Trade Rumors has their arbitration projections that went up. And as I mentioned earlier, Matt Swartz does a really good job with that. Been doing this for like 15 years. And you can get a sense of what teams are going to have significant raises coming that might prompt them to make some trades or possibly non-tender decisions, which is always interesting from the context of opportunity. Like someone else could cash in and take advantage of another team's tightening budget. So as you were going through looking team by team, who kind of stood out to you as the clubs that have the biggest raises due and actual like roster crunches that they're going to have to address here in the next couple months?
I think it's really interesting. Once Billy Beane told me I can't do these full rebuilds, these deep rebuilds where we get a bunch of first round picks at the same time and we go on a run, because all those first round picks going through arbitration at the same time would become a problem for me. And that's what I think when I look at the Orioles. The Orioles are not the team that has the most. The team that has the most are the Rays, but they don't spend anything on anybody that's not in arbitration. So this is basically just their team getting a little bit more expensive. I don't really see that many non-tenders. I asked you if Shane McClanahan at $3.6 million might be a candidate, or Christopher Morel at $2.6. And then there's some guys that, Richie Palacios at $1 million. Like, I don't know what their decision is going to be on that, but it's also not that earth-shattering. What I do see is when I look at the Orioles, they have 14, and that's the most of the Rays was 17. Then the Astros, who we'll talk about in a second, was 16, and the Royals was 16. The Orioles only have 14, quote unquote, but it's their stars, and they're starting arbitration. They're all going to get big raises. Gunnar Henderson in year 3 goes up to $6.6 million. Kyle Bradish goes to $2.8. Felix Bautista $2.1. Dean Kramer $5.1. Adley Rutschman $6.8. Trevor Rogers up to $6 million. Ryan Mountcastle up to $7.8. That one, I think, is a big trade candidate for them to save that $8 million, use other players that they already have in-house that are cheaper, and push that money towards pitching maybe. But this is why they will show up already as a team that's adding payroll, year to year because of their arbitration raises. And I think it's just all happening at the same time with these 3s and 4s, all their first-round picks kind of coming together at the same time, that we may see a big trade from them at some point. We may see a trade that we don't expect. Like, what if it's, I guess that's a funny one to go to. Adley Rutschman. People do expect this one, I guess. But this is maybe why they expect it, is $6.8 million, getting expensive, other guys getting expensive, and Samuel Basallo coming up behind on 3 years of minimum salary. So that one was interesting. The other one that we were talking about a little bit was the Astros. I mean, they just they have 16 players. They also do spend on free agents, so they have free agent people on free agent contracts in there. I mean, I think it's going to get real tight on that Astros roster this offseason.
Yeah, I think you have a couple of versatile right-handed bench bats like Dubon and Ramon Urias that are both above $4 million, or you're probably not going to roster both of those guys at those prices. Maybe you can trade one. So if you have redundancies like that, especially Jesus Sanchez, maybe at $6 million is kind of borderline.
Yeah,
probably non-tender or trade
Chas
him.
McCormick at 3.4 even, I think, is borderline. I mean,
yeah,
they've got a lot of guys, and I think they'll shop them. But I mean, the return for Jesus Sanchez wasn't that great, and now he's more expensive. So that's definitely a DFA possibility. I don't know. Candidate makes it sound like it's a definite, but Dubon at $5.8 million. Do they just keep Ramon Urias at $4.4 million and keep that $1.4 million, or does the fact that Dubon can play short sometimes, and I don't think I want Urias playing short, is that where the value is? I was a little surprised to see the Royals there, but it's a team that's a little bit Raysian, where they don't spend a lot in free agency. So, but Jonathan India at $7.4 million, is that a non-tender candidate?
I think it's at least something you'd think about, right? I mean, India was a below replacement level player this year. 567 plate appearances. Power went down. We were worried about the power possibly dropping off, leaving Cincinnati. Didn't steal any bases. 323 OBP, below average defensive value. Just really, what did he bring to the table this year? I think you look at that maybe as someone you could move on from, non-tender. Maybe bring him back if you like him for less. But if you're playing on a budget, I don't think $7.4 million is something you want to spend on Jonathan India right now.
Yeah. They've got some pitchers out there that, the Reds also have 14. And, we kind of circled Gavin Lux at $5 million. Not giving that much defensive value anymore.
No.
Not really adding power. I could see them moving on from Gavin Lux to use that money somehow somewhere else. And then, I mean, there's some quote unquote easy ones. I mean, the Red Sox have Nate Lowe. It's $13.5 million. I can't see them spending that.
No chance. And that one I don't think is tradable either. I think that's just
No.
a non-tender, and someone could sign him for 6 to 8 million, or something else at some point. Like maybe a useful option for a team that has to work from the second or third tier of free agency, like possibly get an upgrade. But
that's I think a little bit of a failure of arbitration, a little bit maybe. I mean, I guess 13 million. He was basically a 3-win player for 3 years in a row. So I guess 13 million maybe isn't appropriate last year of arbitration for somebody like that, because you expect the way it kind of supposed to go is, I think 40, 60, 80. So it's the last 3 years of arbitration is supposed to give you 40% of your market value, then 60% of your market value, and 80% of the market value. So a 2.5 win player should be worth $25 million. So 13 doesn't seem that far off in that regard. But he had such a bad year, and is a first baseman that first basemen that are 2.5 win players just don't get valued by the market as a 2.5 win player. It's just not how it happens. They're just barely above average first baseman. That's not somebody that like gets long deals that are lucrative.
Here's a name that kind of stands out to me as maybe a tougher call because of his importance to the franchise, but Adolis Garcia, 12.1 million, below replacement level last year, bounced back 0.8 F4, 271 OBP. Second year in a row, he's been below 300. There's still pop, but I don't know, man. Like he's 33 in March, so that could be another area where the Rangers...
His projection might be for below average.
Yeah, if the Rangers feel like they're bumping up against their ceiling already, Garcia might be on the way out at that price.
Yeah, but these are fascinating. What's also nice about this is that we can now plug these into the salaries for next year. I've been, kind of doing it by eye when we've been talking about how much salary a team might have, been kind of just being like, that's 135 million, just sort of adding it up. Now we have the actual numbers. We can plug those into the roster resource numbers over at Fangraphs and have a better sense of who has what to spend this offseason.
Yeah, trying to get the offseason planning, some team previews going in the not so distant future. A lot of work. We just
started back up again. This is the very beginning of starting it back up again.
As soon as the last pitch of the World Series ends, we record the night that the last game happens, and then we say, okay, we wake up the next morning like the new season is here. And no, we wake up the next morning, we drink 3 cups of coffee and look at each other and go, all right, we need a couple days, and then we can keep going.
Take a couple days off.
Let's take a couple days. Take a week. Let's go to Arizona, and then we'll get back at it. That's usually how it goes down. Hopefully, we'll see a lot of you out there at First Pitch Arizona. We are going to go. Just a reminder, you can join our Discord with the link in the show description. We got a Game 3 Division Series chat running in there. Good place to hang out with other listeners and viewers of the show. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Wednesday.
Thanks for listening.